everybody. My name's Nina, by the way. Today, first of all, thanks to everyone who's already spoken today. For our last speaker, he is one of our most valuable assets here at WKU and on our campus. As Diplomat-In-Residence here, he's responsible for educating both WKU students and the rest of the community in Bowling Green regarding foreign language and cultures. He's a very well-traveled person, having worked with the State Department in all sorts of places: Russia, Egypt, Ireland, Sudan. The list goes on and on. And his wealth of knowledge is really invaluable. The world gets smaller and smaller every day with technology. But I'll let him talk about everything he has to say. Please help me to welcome Dr. McClellan.
Thank you, Nina. Unlike all of the other speakers, I have never worked in China. I have never been to Asia, and I don't know a word of Chinese. But I'm going to tell you why I think you should be studying Mandarin. Okay? Now, if I were, see if I can do this. Whoops, yeah. Okay, if I were your age today, I would be doing exactly what you're doing. When I was your age, Soviet studies was the rage. Everybody had to learn about the Soviet Union. Know your enemy, learn Russian. Big Cold War was going on. It was all about learning about this other country that threatened the United States and threatened the world order, threatened capitalism, etc. Today, though, that is not the situation. Today, you have the opportunity to be looking at countries, languages, cultures, etc. that you want to study much more for positive reasons. And that's what I'm going to be talking about here, are all these positive reasons why it's good for you to be studying Mandarin. And if I were you today, if I were an 18-year-old college student, I would definitely be looking at Asia. I would definitely be looking at an Asian language, probably Mandarin, because that's obviously the largest population, the biggest economic powerhouse in the region, and potentially, if you think of the American-Chinese relationship, it's one that's only going to grow bigger and bigger. So what are some reasons for studying Mandarin? Okay, first of all, if I started out in college as an organic chemistry major. Now, how long do you think that lasted? Not one semester. My first semester, I changed majors 7 times, okay? I finally got an A in political science, and that's how I ended up in political science. But as a result of that, I ended up joining the Foreign Service and became a diplomat, so everything worked out fine. I ended up getting into what I thought was a dream career, been very happy with it. But if you are a student who thinks Chinese is going to improve your GPA, you're running a 2.5, 3.0 right now, and you need some easy credits, you should not be in this room. Okay, you are looking at the wrong major if you want easy grades. Okay, this is a tough program. To study Chinese is a very, very hard language. If you're in the Foreign Service and you're going to the Foreign Service Institute to study a foreign language, we teach 6 months of Spanish to get you up to the 4 level. Chinese in 2 years, 1 year of which is in China or Taiwan, will get you up to the 3+ level. If you're really good, it might get you up to the 4 level, but we're happy if you hit 3 at the end of 2 years. Okay, so it's a hard language. Now, that means it's probably not going to be inflating your grade point average, is it? However, if you read it, there was a really good interview with the head of hiring at Google that I read in the New York Times the other day. And one of the things they talked about in there was the impact of GPA on hiring decisions of fresh college graduates. And one of the things Google looks at is not just what your GPA is, but what you studied. And if they see Mandarin, other hard languages, hard subjects, chemical engineering, stuff like that, they're going to look at that and go, wow, this person really took on some tough subjects, and even though their GPA is maybe not as high as this person over here, they were doing good work on hard subjects, so that means a lot more to us. So they look at a student studying Chinese and they see a person who's not afraid of a challenge. They see a person who's willing to get out of the box, you know, to do something different, get out of their comfort zone. And it's rewarded with being more marketable in the job market. Okay? Other reasons that people would look at for studying Chinese are just thinking about where the jobs are in the future. Now, we've already alluded to that a little bit in one of the earlier presentations, but I would encourage you to think of Chinese not as an end in itself for getting a job. I mean, I doubt very many of you aspire to be translators or interpreters. Probably not many of you are thinking of that as a career path. But whatever it is you're going to do, whatever field of study you want to work in as a career, whether it's being an engineer, being an accountant, being a social worker, being a farmer, whatever you want to do, Chinese is a tool that will allow you to take that career in some new directions. It'll allow you to take that career to a whole different level than you would otherwise. And you're going to be able to use that, use Chinese as a skill to build that career. So if you think about, just think about government for a second, because that's the area I'm most familiar with, but then we'll look at some other areas. If you were to, if you come out of Western with a good level of Chinese, now we're not even talking fluency here. Forget the 4 level. Okay, I'm not talking about the 4 level, I'm talking about 2+ or 3. 3 is really good. Okay, if you come out of college with that level of Chinese, you're going to be a really strong candidate for a lot of government jobs. Now let me just give you one example right here on the next slide. This is just a screenshot from the State Department website. They just advertised for consular assistants, and they need U.S. citizens who speak Mandarin. Now these jobs there's going to be a bunch of these people hired, and they're going to go and work in China at the embassy in Beijing or at any of the consulates around the country. And all they're going to be doing is interviewing visa applicants. And, you know, you'd be amazed how many Chinese apply for visas every year. A lot of students, you know, coming here, a lot of business people coming here, a lot of tourists. There's a lot of Chinese with money who just want to go to New York and, you know, see the Empire State Building and stuff. So, you know, we give out tens of thousands of visas every year in China. So somebody's got to interview them, make sure they're legitimate, make sure the information's correct. Not the most exciting job. Okay, it could get a little boring doing that because it tends to be the same conversation over and over. However, it's a job that allows you to live in China and get paid for it, and get paid well. And it could potentially put you there for 5 years, because that's like the maximum amount of time those contracts are going to run. And a lot of these people end up getting into the Foreign Service. This is sort of an entryway into the diplomatic service. So if you were to get one of these jobs, you know, right out of college, thanks to your Mandarin skills, you could very well parlay that into a Foreign Service appointment, you know, 2 or 3, 4, 5 years down the pike. Okay, so that's just one example. There's a lot of other examples in the military where they need Chinese speakers to work on military-to-military exchanges. Okay, not to mention intelligence analysis, you know, where people are reading Chinese media, reading blog sites, you know, writing reports about all the things that, you know, they report on there. So government has a huge need for Chinese speakers. And it's not all CIA. I mean, yeah, they need a bunch too, so does NSA. But there's a lot of areas in government, in trade, in cultural relations, in all of the exchanges, you know, students, language study, people teaching English in China, and so forth, that are going to give you opportunities to use this language for a career. Now, as all of our speakers have pointed out, language study is just the tip of the iceberg. And this is what you really need to think hard about, because I was a diplomat for 30 years. And wherever I went, I served in 11 different countries, in Africa, the Middle East, the Balkans, Western Europe, and Eastern Europe. Now those are radically different cultures and societies. But everywhere I went, I had to learn the language, at least to some level, not always fluently. But I had to learn the language, but I also had to learn about the culture. I had to learn how to act. I had to learn how to be a nice person in that culture. And it's real easy not to be a nice person. You know, you'd be amazed, not knowing the culture, how easy it is to offend people in another culture. And you're trying to be nice. I mean, it's not like you're trying to offend them. It's not like you're trying to be rude. You think you're doing the right thing. But a lot of times, what is the right thing for us is the wrong thing for them. And you got to know those differences. So while you're studying the language, by all means, look at the other things in the culture. Look at the art and architecture. That tells you a lot about a culture, especially the art. Look at the paintings. Look at the paintings through the centuries. Look at their monumental art. Look at what they carve statues of. Look at how they use art in everyday life. Look at the pottery. Look at the baskets. Look at the weaving. And see, how they use things. Okay, because again, that's going to give you some insights into the culture. Music and dance. Asian music, in case you haven't noticed yet, is really different from Western music. Way different. It's just like Arabic music is extremely different from Western, pop music, opera, classical, whatever you want. Every culture has its own music. And those sounds somehow come from within the culture. The things they sing about, the stuff they write their music about, will vary from culture to culture. And so you want to get in there and not just simply listen to the pop tunes, whoever the Justin Bieber of China is this week, but you want to look at the old music, look at the classical music, look at what they consider to be their best music, and read the lyrics. Study what's in there. Find out what the symbolism is in the music and how they interpret things. Same with with dance and literature. Look at what they write about. And this is, I think, a really critical feature of culture. You're learning a language, and it's going to be a long time before you can just pop open a Chinese language novel and start reading it. Okay, that's not going to happen this semester, trust me. You may not ever reach the point that you can comfortably and easily read literature. I remember when I was studying Arabic, there's a very famous Arab writer named Ibn Battuta, and he wrote this travel book. And it was a great travel book, and I bought a copy in a Cairo bookshop. And I took that thing home. It was written in classical Arabic, and I thought, oh man, I'm going to put my Arabic to use. So I laid down on the couch, got comfortable, had my Turkish coffee. I was totally in the moment. And I opened up this book, and I looked at the first page, and about an hour and a half later, I made it to the bottom of the page. And this is a book about this thick. Hour and a half to get to the bottom of the first page, and I thought, man, I'm going to spend my life trying to read this book. But I had made it to the bottom of the first page, and I can't tell you how good it felt that I had actually read one page of a classical Arabic writer who was famous in the Middle East. And I enjoyed it. I figured it out. I was able to understand the sentences after an awful lot of work. Now, the first page takes an hour and a half, the second page takes an hour, the third page takes 45 minutes. Before you know it, you're reading a page every 10 minutes, and it's going pretty well. But initially, it's a lot of work. But, again, it opens up all these doors to you emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, and otherwise. Social customs and family practices. One of the most important things you can do in a culture is get to make friends in that culture who will invite you to their homes. And for those of you who are American students here, the same thing goes the other way. If you really want to do a huge favor and be really nice for international students, invite them to your home for Thanksgiving or Christmas. Let them see what an American home, an American family, how it observes holidays and celebrates. Share your experience with them in the same way you want these other people to share their experiences with you. Because when you get to China someday, if a Chinese family, opens their homes to you and has you at dinner, and they invite you to share in their life, that's going to be a total eye-opener for you on Chinese culture and the language. It'll be hard for you. You'll struggle with the vocabulary. You don't want them all just sitting there speaking English, because then it's not really the same experience. But it's going to be an amazing experience for you. So, try to get in there and experience the family, experience the customs. Eat on the street. Eat in the places where you're going to be the only foreigner. Don't worry about diarrhea, okay? That's just part of the experience. Don't worry about getting sick. You're going to get sick overseas. Trust me, I don't care where you go. That's just part of getting your body adjusted to the new reality overseas. But if all those people can eat that stuff, so can you. So, go to the streets. Go to where the masses are. Go to the less traveled areas of town. Go to the places where you stand out. And that way you'll really experience the fullness of it. The religions, we talked about Asian religions earlier today. About Asian history, ancient and modern. Study all of that stuff. And if you can't take a class, get the reading list. Go talk to the professor and say, look, I can only read one book. I don't have a lot of time. Can you just give me one book that'll give me a decent overview of Chinese history? Okay, it may be Chinese history for dummies, but that's okay. I mean, yeah.
I wrote a book published in 2010. I didn't put it in there. Talking about the dummy book. It's called "This is China: The First 5,000 Years."
Oh, okay.
Everything about it.
But do that if you have to. If you can't take all these excellent courses that Western offers,
pages only.
if you can't take all these excellent courses because you just don't have room in your schedule, then at least do the reading on your own. Okay? Because again, that's going to open up a lot of knowledge to you. Can you think of anything else that you should be looking at in a society? Anything at all? Okay? Let's look at one little painting here. No, not yet. Okay, I forgot about this slide. So anyway, remember when you're studying Chinese, it's hard. It's very different. The grammar, the vocabulary, the roots of words, the writing, everything is radically different. But remember, for them to learn English, it's just about as bad. Okay, for a Chinese person to learn English as a second language is just as hard as what you're going through to learn Chinese. It's just as much of a radical departure from what they're used to. It's just as much of a radical departure in terms of the thinking and the word order and how to build sentences and all of that stuff. Okay, but if they can do it, so can you. It's just a heck of a lot of work. Okay, so you need to get into that new way of thinking. And that new way of thinking in the language translates into everything else. You'll learn a new way of thinking about art, a new way of thinking about literature, a new way of thinking about culture, a new way of thinking about history. And that's all part of learning the language. Language is just one piece. It's one piece of a big puzzle. Now, granted, without that piece, you can't tell what the picture is. I mean, the picture doesn't look complete. But remember, it's only a piece of the puzzle. Learning Mandarin by itself is not going to give you everything you know. But ultimately, what you want to learn by learning Chinese is learn what it means to be Chinese. Learn what it means to think like a Chinese. Learn what it means to live in a Chinese way, what a Chinese lifestyle is. Okay, because all of this is tied to the language. Okay, now, here's a painting that I'm sure you've probably all seen before. It's called The Four Beauties in Chinese History. Now, I kind of like this painting. It's, sort of, I don't know, I guess the Mona Lisa of China or whatever. It's a common painting. Everybody's seen it. But I like this painting because, again, it points to a lot of those differences. Now, if you don't know the story, and I don't know the names of them, and I wouldn't try to pronounce them if I did, but these are four women in four different dynasties whose beauty was so overpowering that they completely changed history. Kings fell and rose because of them and so on. The first one, and I think I got the order right, over here on the left, was so beautiful that when she walked along a body of water, the fish were so stunned at her beauty that they forgot how to swim and would sink to the bottom. The second one, the one in red, was so beautiful that when she walked, the birds in the air forgot how to fly and fell to the ground. The third one, in white, was so beautiful that even the moon couldn't look on her without being ashamed and hiding its face in an eclipse. And then finally, the last one, she was so beautiful that when she walked through the fields, the flowers would drop their blooms in shame because they couldn't compare to her beauty. Now, would we in the West ever do a painting like this? Would we ever have a painting with a story behind it like that? Would we ever think of doing a painting with 4 beautiful women and describing them in such terms? No, we wouldn't. It's a different way of thinking. It's a completely different approach. But, this documents 4 figures who are more or less historical. I'm not going to debate the historicity of them, but, these are 4 important characters in Chinese history. They show the importance of women in Chinese history. But even more importantly, think about the symbolism that's in here. As a student of Chinese art, why the different colors? Why the different objects? Why is the style done the way it is? You notice there's no shadows? You don't see shading on them at all like we in the West do. There's not that attempt at realism to put, light and shade and shadows and sculpting of the features and stuff like that. Yet they still look very three-dimensional. It's a different way of looking at it. You notice the 4 faces are pretty much the same. It's kind of a set, standard female face. Yet all this other stuff tells the Chinese viewer a lot of things about them that, a person not knowing the history and culture wouldn't get out of it. So this is what I want to give to you today. You're taking on a very difficult subject. It's hard. You're going to have to work super hard at it. There are going to be times when you're going to be banging your head on the desk saying, why did I choose to study Chinese? I'm sure you will. I did it with German, Arabic, and Russian. I'm sure I would have done it. I'd have probably given up on Chinese. I would love to study Chinese now, but I can't because I'm too old. And that's the last point I want to make with you. Every year you age, it gets more and more difficult to study a foreign language. As you get older, most of you are now, 19, 20, 21 years old? Every year, your brain is decaying, okay? Your brain is changing every year you get older. And it gets harder and harder and harder to learn a foreign language. If you were 5 years old, you could be learning Mandarin like that. It wouldn't even faze you. When you're 20, it's hard, but it's still quite possible. If you wait until you're 30, it's going to be a lot harder. If you wait until you're my age, it's going to be like, pulling teeth. Every character is going to be a root canal to you. Okay, so, you're really smart to be choosing to study Mandarin now. Do it while you're young. Okay, put all the time and effort into it while you can now. Build that base, and then it's going to be a lifetime process. You'll be learning Mandarin 30 years from now. Okay, it's not like, 2 or 3 years at Western and you've learned the language and you can just quit and go home. It's a lifetime process. But build up that base right now while you can, while your brain is fresh, and then you'll be able to just keep moving on and go through life. As you learn more about the culture, you're going to be picking up more words. The fluency will come to you. The writing will develop. And you'll be able to just really get inside the essence of being Chinese. And that's ultimately what this is all about. And it can lead to a good job, as if all that isn't enough. So good luck with your studies. Thank you very much for doing this. Thank you for the event. And if you have any quick questions, I'm happy to answer them. As Nina said, I'm the Diplomat-In-Residence. My office is over in Mammoth. I'm probably the newest guy in the university because I just started in February. So the name is Michael McClellan, michael.mcclellan@wku.edu. If you want to come and talk, happy to do it. Just email me. We'll set up a time. And we can talk about careers, studies, whatever you need to talk about. Okay? All right, thank you.